Good morning. Good morning. Good? Yeah. Sí. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me good for those of you online? Just want to check that my mic is working good. So yeah, it seems like I'll use this speaker. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So I hope everyone is doing all right. Uh, I'm super excited for this talk because this is there is a mistake on the slide. This is about DAOs, and so DAOs are really why I'm here. I usually ask myself like every morning, why are you doing this? Like, why are you inflicting all of this to you? So much work and so on. And this really comes down to DAOs because Motoko Bootcamp, I want it to be a space for experimentation, brainstorming, and learning about DAOs because I really believe that this is the next big thing. For me, that's what make me went into Web3 and crypto. So all of this about blockchain and like token and Bitcoin and Ethereum, it didn't make any sense to me before I realized DAOs. And once you put DAOs into the puzzle, it makes sense because it's just a new way of work, a new way of organization, and then the rest just makes sense because blockchain is just a tool, and then crypto is just capital that we can use to make those DAOs work, basically. So yeah, and I think it's a super interesting topic because especially my generation and the generations that are coming, you can see that they are not very engaged with the work, traditional work. So there is this great resignation that happened around COVID, but actually is a phenomenon that keeps ongoing. So people are changing job, they are not happy with their job, and it's not a monetary issue. It's really an issue about finding a job that is meaningful, finding a job that is flexible because we live like differently than we used to. We have a lot of people that have remote job. People don't necessarily want to stay at the same company for 20 years as they used to. And so we need more flexible type of organizations. And also people are looking for more than a job, they are looking for a community. And that's a very important part of the work of tomorrow. It's about finding a community. So how can DAOs solve the problem I've just mentioned? Well, the first thing is that a DAO is much more flexible than a corporation because you can make it, I mean, it's code. And we all know that code is very flexible, very powerful. So we can have people that are involved, but only for a certain time, like a few hours per month, only for a specific set of tasks, but they don't have to be either employed or unemployed. It's a much more flexible kind of spectrum. And you can have people that work for a DAO for a few months and then they decide to do something else. And it's easier to, move from one DAO to another, even work for multiple DAOs. And so that comes to the second point, which is it's a very open space. So you get to choose your DAO, you get to choose what you're going to work on. And so, well, it also requires, of course, to be curious and to find out about those DAOs. But yeah, essentially, it's more about increasing the intrinsic motivation and having people going into DAOs than really bringing them into a close structure. And finally, DAOs are about community first. So we can discuss about what that means. What is a community exactly, and what's the difference with more like a workforce? But usually the most successful DAOs, they've all emerged from a place of chaos, kind of, like community, very grassroots, where people would experiment, try things, and then something would work. And I have a few examples that I want to talk about. So before that, let's dream a little bit. And that's kind of the vision I have in mind. Let's think we are in 2030 and we figure out how to use DAOs and we figure out how to use them in a good way. So I think we can solve those three issues. Sounds like a dream, but we could actually remove corruption. Why? Because, well, we can make DAOs transparent. So it would be much DAOs transparent. So for example, yeah, I said we can make DAOs transparent. So for example, it would be much easier to know that someone picked up money in the common treasury. So like politicians, would be much more difficult for them to do those, contracts and to do that in a closed setting. If we open up the information, I mean, it's not going to make it impossible, of course, but it's going to make it much more difficult. And that brings me to the second point, which I think we can really improve we can improve our leadership. I was talking about this yesterday. I think DAOs, they need to be very accessible for everyone. But if you want to have a responsibility, you have to commit and you have to be transparent. That's my vision. That's my idea as well. Usually DAOs, they will have, of course, people more engaged than others. That makes sense. And so the idea is that those people, they should be fully transparent. If you want to be in charge, if you want to be responsible for something, and you have the trust of the DAO and the community, you might have more, you have to be transparent and you have to show what you're doing. And it's actually fun because there is a group of people that are already doing this for politicians. Like basically they are looking at their tax report and they are looking at which company they have stock in and what decisions they take. And then you can see that sometimes it's not fully aligned. It's not how it should be. And so, yeah, so my point is that DAOs should be fully transparent. They are fully transparent most of the time. And that can lead to improved leadership. And the last thing is, I think it's a huge tool for helping people find a purpose in their life. Because like it's an open kind of workplace. And also it's not just work, it's also, it can be about education. A DAO can be about education, can be about like a video game. It can be about any type of, concept and industry. And that leaves a lot of room for experimentation. And we don't know what are the jobs that we are going to have in the future. We don't even know if we are going to have jobs. I think just yesterday, there was another news about OpenAI. Some people are saying that they have reached AGI. I don't know if they have reached AGI or not, but in any case, if you have already tried GPT-4, and you've tried the recent GPT builders, you can see how a lot of jobs are going to be disrupted for sure. And so, yeah, DAOs, I think, can help us with the problem of like, okay, if we don't have jobs in the future, what are we going to do? And most people, they want to have something to do. I mean, that makes sense. Like, you don't want to do nothing. And so DAOs can be helpful in the sense that you can try things, experiment, and find your purpose. And usually it's much more flexible than traditional jobs. So let's talk about DAOs. I want to be a bit more concrete because it's easy to not be concrete with this topic. And I have selected 3 examples of DAOs that I like for different reasons. The first one is going to be Uniswap. The second one is Gitcoin. And the second one is the NNS DAO, which is the DAO that actually controls the internet computer and manage the whole network. So the first one, Uniswap, is a DAO from the Ethereum world. Gitcoin is also from the Ethereum world, and NNS is from the ICP world. So Uniswap, if you don't know what Uniswap is, it's a decentralized finance application. So it's the most common and like used application, fully on Ethereum. The goal of Uniswap is basically to enable people to trade crypto. So if you have one crypto, you can use it to trade to another one, and you don't have to go through a centralized exchange like Binance or Kraken. The idea is that you own your crypto, so you don't rely on an intermediary, but you can still trade with other people. And there is a lot of like it's a huge and big project with a lot of different components. But the main thing is this like swap functionality, which is essentially enables you to go from one crypto to another one. And so this project actually, I like the story of this project because it's really started as an experimentation in the open. So it was completely open source and yeah, completely experimental type of project. And the community started to use it. And then now it's, of course, one of the biggest decentralized finance projects. One distinction is that the DAO, so there is a DAO and there is a project. The DAO was only created after the project, so 2 years after the project launch, actually. So it's one of the biggest DAO that exists on Ethereum. It's also one that is regarded as one of the best distribution of tokens. So usually a DAO, when the DAO is official and launch, there is a token that comes into play. That's where you kind of build the foundation and the sustainability of the organization. And it's usually very hard to launch a token because if the price goes down, you will have people from your community complain. If the price goes up, it can attract maybe speculation that you don't want or you didn't expect. So it's really hard. But what Uniswap did, I think is a really good example, is that they didn't rush into it. They just waited until their project was used and add a functionality. Whereas some other project, they usually launch a token without really knowing what the goal of the token is. So they waited, they had a functional product, and then they launched the token and they created the DAO to decentralize it. And they actually retroactively gave token to all the people that helped them in the past. So that's, I think, like, I mean, it's regarded as the best distribution of tokens because I didn't hear anyone complain. I hear a lot of good things from the community. So I think that's a really good example for that. Now, the thing I don't like too much about Uniswap DAO is that the DAO itself is pretty limited. So you cannot do much, actually. If you look at, so they have this DAO page. It's on the right on the slide. Essentially, it's just a list of proposals where you can vote if you have token. As a community member, you can vote on the proposals. But the proposal, they don't do anything. So it's still a very early and very simple system where you just have like, let's say, deploy Uniswap on Base. So it's a new network and they will make a proposal and people are going to vote, but it's not going to do anything if the proposal is accepted. Essentially just the developers have to come and they have to do the task and they have to follow on the proposal accepted. So it's not like really something that can scale much. It's very, yeah, it's very early. And so they can also take decisions on some parameters of the protocol. So like there are some fees, they can take decisions on that, but it's really, really like basic kind of DAO. Okay, so that's it for Uniswap. The second one is Gitcoin, also one of my favorite projects. It's super cool. Basically, they are funding open source software, and they do that with quadratic funding. So quadratic funding is a way to distribute funds or voting power to make it more decentralized. So it's essentially how to explain it good. You essentially instead of having one project, so there is going to be submissions of projects, open source projects, and an amount to fund them. And if you use quadratic funding, instead of having one project that will receive all the funds, you essentially diversify into different projects. And the same thing happened to Gitcoin. They were experimenting. They saw that the product was working. People were interested. And then they worked really hard for a few years. And then they launched and created the DAO. But it's a progressive project. They didn't decide to launch a token and figure out what to do later. They first created their organization and first a management platform that they have. And then they created the DAO. And I like this DAO because it's actually, so of course it's my research and I'm doing a lot of research, but I believe it's one of the DAO that is really decentralized. Like essentially the founder stepped down and a lot of other people came. I think because the vision is good and it attracts other people. And so now it's really an organization that I believe can show how you can make a DAO decentralized in the sense that you can have an organization that runs without the founders and even keeps on growing and keeps on having new people coming in. So yeah, that's it for Gitcoin. And so okay. So yeah, same thing about Gitcoin. They manage a good amount, actually, in terms of funding. They do manage a good amount of resource. So their DAO is very, very used. But same thing as Uniswap, they still don't have on-chain like automatic things that happen. So it's still limited. Then the other side is what we have on ICP. And we have a super complex DAO that actually not a lot of people understand. So we have like two sides of the coin. Technically, this is super cool what we can do. So this is the NNS, Network Nervous System. And this is the DAO that manage the internet computer. And there are many, many different parts that come to that. So it's a set of canisters. You have the ledger, which is like the ICP token. You have the governance, which is where the proposals are stored. And you have the registry, which is the configuration of the network. So like how much nodes, which subnets, what public keys. And then you have the NNS UI, which is the interface that you would use to use the DAO. And you can log in and you can see all those proposals. There are actually tons of them, like every day, even too much. And they are categorized by category. So some of them will be like subnet management, for example. If you have new nodes, so I've already talked about that, but you can have new nodes joining the network through this DAO. And all sorts of other proposals, like if we want to change the economy of ICP, like the token, how much token are created or burned, we could also change that from the DAO. So it's a super cool DAO. Like technically, I think it's probably the most advanced that exists. I mean, it's managing a whole cloud by itself, and that's very impressive. And that's also why I think it's like super interesting because this can actually operate in terms of it controls software. It controls software and it can do anything it wants on this software. So one thing that we usually talk in the ICP community is how to make sure that this doesn't become like a problem for the network. So it's a hot topic. I think this is the most interesting thing about ICP. It's that this DAO essentially runs the whole network. And so it means that it can do anything it wants on the network. And it's essentially an experiment. Can a DAO run a cloud? Maybe not, maybe it can. I believe it can, but I believe we need to be smart about how, what kind of things the DAO can do. Does it has limitation? For example, if we want to, if we want to change like the configuration of a canister, do we need maybe 50% of the votes? Do we need 80%? Maybe also something like should the voting power be only about the number of tokens that you have, or maybe we can take other parameters into account? This is an open question, and but that's super interesting in any case. So DNS actually it's so it's for the whole network, and then the SNS are for individual applications. And I want to show you because actually it's best to show what is live. And so for that, I will go back to this dashboard, and we have here SNS. So those are all the SNSs that exist as of today. You can see that it's like very diverse. We have a message application, but also blog application, a meme coin, so like just a coin, like kind of Twitter. Mod Club is a moderation platform. Like we have different projects, and all those projects they've launched using this DAO framework. So it's just a framework. It's basically a set of code that enable an application to be decentralized or to be at least moved from the control of the developer to the control of the DAO. And so when you do that, you create a token, and essentially you assign the control of the application to the token holders. And by doing so, as a developer, you can raise funds. So this is mostly how you would raise funds on ICP. There are other ways that I'm going to talk about, but this is mostly how you would raise funds if you wanted to start your project on ICP. So OpenChat, they've raised 1 million ICP. So that was like 4 million, 5 million. Nuance, I don't know how much they've raised, but they've raised a good amount. We can actually see probably here. Yeah, so here you have the list of all the SNSs that I've launched. And those are, I mean, it's really recent. I think the SNS is like 6 months, 7 months old. And there are already a few projects that I've launched. Let's see Nuance, for example. So we can see, they've raised, we can see their treasury. So that's like the ICP they have for their DAO. And so essentially they use that to pay for expenses, to pay for the team, to pay for cycles as well, because those applications, of course, they cost. So they need to pay for the cost of computation and storage. And we can see the transfer, so like where the token is going. I think the main challenge with this is that it's a really good framework, like on the technical side. So essentially anyone that has an application in a few days, you just need to become familiar with how the SNS work. And there is actually a whole documentation. Yeah. It's here. Yeah. So I mean, this is an explanation of everything about SNSs. So, but I want to show you the code. I think it's this. Yeah, I'll send that actually. this is how, yeah, this is the documentation that you could use if you wanted to launch your SNS tomorrow. And I was saying that it's very impressive on a technical level, what they've achieved. So this is something that was built by Definity from almost like zero to launch. And you can use it. It's a framework that will essentially generate like a token, like a governance system for your application. And it integrates with other parts of the IC. So you have like a full kind of package. And I was saying that I think the challenge with this is how do you integrate, like, how do you, because right now those are very impressive, but also we don't know if those applications are really going to be decentralized in the sense that like other contributors will come, because right now it's mostly the developers team and they have plans to decentralize. But like, how is it going to work? Are people going to be involved in the applications? I don't know. I think some have good chances to work, not every application probably, and it's up to the quality of the team. So, yeah, wanted to talk about SNSs. Maybe a question on SNSs. I don't know. No. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So,
can you give like then get them back, or once you set them out, they have to be out?
So the question is, can you set temporary rights to the community and then get back control over your application, right? So I don't think you can do that. No, you cannot do that with the SNS, because once you launch your application, there will be all sorts of canisters deployed that will manage your applications. And so you cannot delete those canisters and go back to a state where you control. In theory, if the DAO accepts, you should be able to do whatever you want, but I think it's not recommended. If you just want to make like a test, I think it's better to, the SNS is not the only framework that you can use to make a DAO. It's one framework that was built by Definity and it's very impressive, but we don't know if it's the best framework and I don't think it works for every project out there. I think it needs to be, some projects, maybe they need like incremental steps where they give away to the community more and more. They see what engage people, what doesn't. SNS is very like all-in solution, and it's good if you are looking to raise a good amount of money. So for some projects that already have like, if they have big plans, I think SNS is good. But once again, it's not the only solution. And actually, I would like to see more like other solutions, like if there is other things to do. Yeah, I know that some people in the community, they were working on some tools, but it's not easy actually. That's also why it took Definity so much time to come up with the SNS. So yeah. Also, I think SNS has been audited, and whenever you're doing a DAO, of course, like if there is a token involved, there will be questions about, have you audited your code and so on. So yeah. So yeah, I think DAOs are amazing because we can finally answer the question, what can I use the blockchain for? You can use the blockchain for like making all sorts of things. You can manage an application with a DAO. You can manage a grant program. You can manage a social network. Like essentially, you can do everything you can do in the Web2 world, normal world, but just as a collective group. And that's super cool because, yeah, you can include more people into your project, and you can build things differently. So we have some DAOs that manage DeFi application. I mean, I'm referring to Uniswap there. We have some DAOs that take investment decisions. So that's something I've seen, like people coming up together as a group. So they have a bigger amount and then they take decision as a group to invest in projects. DeFi is decentralized finance. It's the acronym for decentralized finance. We have seen people doing investment as a group. I don't know if this works really good. I have some doubts, but we have seen some people managing a grant program. So that's Gitcoin here. What they're doing is managing a grant program essentially, and managing a social network. So like OpenChat, for example, is a social network. So what DAOs can do and what they can do today, that's an assessment like from my experience. So DAOs can control a user treasury. Essentially, you have a multi-signature wallet. People will vote on like if they want to spend money for certain things, you can do that. You can control the software and applications. What I haven't seen so far is how you can coordinate efficiently a lot of workers, like a lot of people. I don't think right now DAOs are mature enough for that. I think it will happen at some point, but right now, if we look honestly, most of the DAOs are basically, let's say 10, 20 for the biggest people. And then, of course, like a huge community of token holders, so people that essentially are invested in the project. But I haven't seen a DAO that really coordinates people that works together, like a company, basically. Yeah, I think we're still like a few years away from that, but I do believe it's going to happen. And that's it. I have so many questions. Actually, I think I have more questions that things to explain. So some questions are like, can we integrate local communities with DAOs? So DAOs are really good for like global things. Kind of, I mean, the digital world is very global. How can we integrate local communities into DAOs? Maybe we can have like a local community that is integrated into a DAO, and other local communities are integrated, and they could do local actions like together, and they could share knowledge globally. So that could be like a good synergy. I'm not sure exactly, but I think there is something to do with local communities and DAOs. That's pretty obvious, but just needs to be implemented. Can DAOs be more efficient than traditional companies? That's a question I always ask myself. And I had the privilege 2 weeks ago of meeting someone that has been working in Web3 for really, really, really big companies, like for Apple, Nike, and Goldman Sachs. So the person was doing a talk about Web3, and I couldn't help myself but ask the question like, okay, so you've worked for those big companies, like the biggest company in the world, Apple. How do you see the kind of, decentralization shift? How do they react to that? Are they prepared? Do they think they're going to be disrupted or not? And so the person answered me that actually, from her experience, those companies are super interested by blockchain, Web3, but they don't take any leap because, of course, how they are organized themselves kind of doesn't fit really well with what we're trying to do. And she told me that she was actually more optimistic than before joining those companies, even though she couldn't do many things. She was in the Web3 department, and essentially every idea was like, oh yeah, it sounds really good, but let's wait to do that, let's not do that. But actually those companies are so big that they are basically, she told me that they are inefficient by being so like centralized and so big. Centralization works to be efficient, I think, in some scale, but when you go very, very big, like Apple, actually they have problems because they are centralized in the management, how things work. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how traditional companies and DAOs are going to shift. And I'm saying this, I have an iPhone, I have a Nike jacket, so like I don't think we can replace those companies. Like they have brought good things. It's just like, how are we going to change how they run, how they manage? So that's an open question. The voting system are very, very experimental. You have voting system where it's like one token, one vote. You have voting system where it's like one human, one vote. You have voting system where you need to stake. So if you are engaged long-term with the DAO, you have more voting power. You can also have a mix. Like I've seen some mix, for example, token are going to give you voting power, but then if you've proved that you have like achieved and contributed to the DAO, you are going to have a bonus. And if you stake for long term, you are going to have a bonus. Like you can try all sorts of voting system. One last question is, well, it's not the last, but one other question would be, how can we integrate everyone into DAOs? Because a lot of people are not really into tech. Are they going to use DAOs? Are they going to integrate? I mean, not everyone is going to work in the front of a computer. I think a lot of people don't want that. For me, it's not a problem, but I understand that some people, I don't know, like how are they going to be integrated into DAOs at some point? I don't know. Hot topic, DAOs and AI, like how DAOs should leverage AI. I've seen some DAOs experimenting actually with AI. So in their governance to have guidance on the decision, but also in the like analysis. So one super interesting thing is that those DAOs, if they take decision in the open, you can essentially run a model and see, oh, we took this decision like 6 months ago. What is the impact? And of course, that's a lot of data to, process, but you can use AI to help you have like a summary, make things more accessible. So yeah, I'm super bullish on AI and DAOs for the reason for governance, but also for having a very, very specialized model. So one problem with AI right now, what I've noticed is that if you work on a really, really specific topic, it's really hard to get a good answer. Like, of course, if you're doing something that everyone else has already done, ChatGPT is going to give you a good answer. But if you're working on a very specific topic, on a very specific niche, it's not aware of that. And sometimes you just need to actually train it, and then it's going to be amazing. And maybe DAOs, they could train models for their specific like knowledge, whatever they're working on, their application or like project, and have a common model for the DAO that could give answers, help people. Yeah, and also just make everything simpler, like, because I show you the dashboards, but we need like, it's so much information, those DAOs. If everything is online on the chain, it's so much information. I think we can use artificial intelligence to make it like more accessible and understandable for us human. And the last one, how to prevent toxic leadership. So can we put like mechanism in place to make sure that DAOs cannot be hijacked by a leader that's has full powers, like all sorts of questions like this. If you want if you want to give a shot at one question here, I'm happy to open the discussion. And it's the end of the presentation.
Well, I'm thinking, for example, how to integrate local communities. Yes, it's really a challenge because the mindset is that locally you have a better communication face to face.
Yes.
Then
digitally.
How to use a DAO at a local level? Well, maybe I don't know. Sincerely,
I think it would be maybe useful to run your building, for example, when you have to take decisions about when to spend more money on fixing things. That is new. Even some decisions could be balanced in the DAO instead of going to a meeting and shouting against your neighbor, which is more difficult.
Do you want to finish it?
I want to finish neighbors meeting.
Okay, so actually I should give you a mic next time. I will try to prepare that so that you can, because we have some people online so they can listen to the questions. So the question was about local communities and DAOs, like how can we integrate them? We mentioned that DAOs are local communities are much more like physical presence brings a lot of clarity when you discuss. It's easier to communicate. So I don't have the answer, but I think both have advantages. Like local are really good for bringing people together, engagements, and physical like action, like doing things really, like the important things. DAOs are really good for capital and knowledge. So like you can share capital among different groups in the world. You can share knowledge. I think that's the most important, like knowledge and application, because if there is a problem in one place, I'm pretty sure there is the same problem in like thousands of other places. So if someone somewhere finds a solution, and this solution can be easily replicated, then that's the power of DAOs. Like you share the knowledge, and then you have the local communities that can act on this problem. But yeah, like I don't think everyone is going to be excited to be like part of a DAO. Some people they don't have like a good relation with technology, and they need like a presence, something concrete. But I think the mix of the two can be really good. And actually, I think Boyan over there, he told me that you wanted to. I bring you in the discussion. You told me you wanted to build a DAO for a local community, right? Yeah. We are talking about like how can both of them integrate. I don't know what's your take, because local communities have advantages and DAOs have advantages. Maybe you have some ideas. I should have the mic next time. Really, really. Yeah, I think I can give you it. Yeah.
So could you please repeat the question
So the question was,
and the topic?
I just want your take on like how do you see local communities and DAOs integrating, because DAOs have advantages, but they also have disadvantages because they are fully online, and local communities they also.
Yeah, I think that the technical people must integrate and talk with the normal people that aren't related with this technology. We must build some bridge between this type of groups. So this is my idea and my vision. It's not to focus on the technology. My idea is to focus on bridge between the normal people and tech guys.
Okay, and you think that the local communities basically can help for the bridge?
Yep, sure. Okay. We must help each other. Yeah.
I think that's what makes sense a lot. Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was saying that. Yeah, I definitely agree with this. Like, I think the local aspect is important and needs to be integrated when you build a DAO. Cool. Another one? Want to take a shot at another question? Actually, I think we answered both. Like, we answered this and this at the same time. I mean, which voting system should be implemented is maybe too general. Like, I think it depends on the, like, what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, maybe AI. Want to take a shot on AI? Actually, I think we will have a discussion on AI. So there is someone working on decentralized AI that is coming to the bootcamp. So we will have a talk with this person. And yeah, I think we will have good ideas coming from this talk. Okay, so thanks everyone for listening. I think it's time to wrap. Let's get back to work. Let's build our DAO, and I see you in the next session. Bye.